Hi everyone, welcome back to the Teacher's Surgery. We've got another episode for you, for us to get into. How's everyone doing? We've got Hacks, we've got Sabs, we've got Michael in the building. Let's go. All right, Michael, welcome back to the second episode. Love it, man. I really enjoyed your output from last time, so let's get into it, man. Hacks. Yeah.
Glad to be back. Thank you,
Yeah.
Des. Good to see you,
Oga assistant, head teacher. Yeah.
Okay,
all right.
I see what you've done.
Yeah, and we got Sabs back, man. Sabs full of energy.
Here I am.
Man.
Ready to go.
Love it. So we've got a really good episode right now. We're gonna get into it, and you guys, I think you all gonna be biased because I'm gonna represent the other side.
You'll be surprised.
Okay.
And I'm gonna ask you is who is to blame for poor behavior? Is it the parents or the teacher's fault?
Poor behaviour in the classroom, in the school.
I think just all round, just poor behavior from a child. Yeah.
Okay.
Who is to blame for that?
Can I jump in?
Go on.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. First and foremost, it's a two-way street. The relationship between home and school is super important. In my experience, the strategies I use at school, I relay to the parents in order to create that holistic pattern of work that we're doing. Now, who is actually responsible for a young person behavior? It's got to be the parent. However, a teacher is loco parentis when they're in our school. In that sense, that's telling you that you must have that same ethos that the parent should have. So you must have the same responsibility. Okay, so for me then, it's twofold. If you are seeing strategies at home that work, then you should be trying to speak with mum to say, okay, how can we incorporate those strategies here? Now, I'm not talking about the wooden spoon. This is not the 1980s. But I am talking about, you know what? We take away his screen time, or, we make him think about the consequences. In school, if we are looking at making a young person reflect on their behavior and challenging them when they're showing negative choices, then we're trying to employ the parent and say, listen, this is what we want you to try and do at home. And if you need support with it, you can come and we can sit together and we can talk about how we work with it in school. Now, so to me, it is a two-way street. Neither side can have complete sole responsibility. A child is in a school for 8 hours a day. At some point, if we're not taking responsibility for that, then what's the point of us being there?
Is it 8 hours now, is it?
Boy, ours are from 8 till 4.
Oh, okay.
And sometimes 6:30 because we've got enrichment.
Okay.
But Hack, sorry, I just have to jump in there.
Come on,
okay,
Sam,
look. I'm just putting myself as a teacher here. How many kids do I have in a classroom? How many? Give me a number.
Your classroom or mine?
Yours. Pick yours. How many kids do you have in a classroom?
5.
Okay.
She wasn't expecting that.
Right, okay. How many kids do you have in a classroom? Okay, we're talking average, what, 20? We're talking around 20.
Spot on.
20.
I was being facetious,
Now,
sorry.
if I've got 20 children in a classroom and I have a behavior management issue with a child, there's twofolds. I understand what you're saying and I agree that the communication between parent and teacher could be better. As a parent, we do have an expectation where we need the communication from them to say, well, what's happening outside of the classroom? What's happening outside of school? If they communicate, it becomes easier. But as a teacher, really, have schools done enough to support teachers to deal with that? That's what the issue is here. I don't think good teachers who care about their learners wouldn't want to do what you've said. But I think we have a bigger problem here. And the problem is that the schools are putting so much pressure on staff, whether it's observations, whether it's audits, whether it's checking their teaching and learning, I mean serious scrutiny, level of grade, mark, work and feedback in a timely manner. Multiply by that by 20, 30. As a teacher, do you really have that time for that learner, for that one parent, for that one learner? No. There needs to be extra support in schools to facilitate for the behaviour issues that have become a national problem. This is not just a problem between black students, Pakistani students, Asian students. It's a national problem, behavioural issues, because it's a societal issue. Whether you're working class, upper class, middle class, the problems are there across the board. Therefore, schools are not investing enough. So for that reason alone, I say the schools are responsible because they're not doing enough.
Okay, and I agree with what you said there, but I'll go further and say it's not the schools, because the schools don't create the money. It's the government. The government sold off the school fields. The government took away the extracurricular activities.
The schools are. Do you know the schools are receiving at least £18,000 to £20,000 per learner? This is it. What are they doing with that money?
18 to 20 is not enough for learner.
I'll be honest with you.
No, but he
enough
goes
to do something about
I'm
it.
going to tell
all your students have laptops, so you're
that
was different.
I make no bones, but I work in a very particular field.
Yeah.
I work in a field where our young people have been ostracized from education.
Okay.
They may be have refused to attend. They maybe experienced trauma.
Yeah.
And so the local authority has found an environment for them to come and be educated. So it's very specialized. However, I have seen the value that can happen if we put in the effort. And once I hear what you're saying, it has to be at a government level.
Well, to answer your question, the government do. Government do. The schools need to request additional support is needed, or they need to request additional resources.
Wait, Samson, hold on, wait 1 sec. I need Michael to chime in. I need Michael. I want to hear a third opinion. Where are you leaning between these?
It's actually hard. It's actually really hard, and I actually kind of agree. I was like, I agree with you, I agree with you, but no, I do just think. I know I've talked about this on the previous episodes and things like that. I just think the whole education system is just not working. Like, if it was working, you'd have happy learners, which are better learners. People feel ready and engaged going out into the workforce. And I would actually say something kind of controversial here, just to add fire to the flames.
Go ahead.
I actually think the school leaving age should be lowered, not increased.
Wow.
I actually do. Now, that is, I know, incredibly controversial.
It is.
To what?
It is.
I think 14.
Wow.
What do they do after 14 then?
If they choose to, if they want to, they can go into some kind of apprenticeship or type of work, like a work-based scheme. So almost like what you might do post-16. I think for certain students, if they feel committed to something and that they somehow show that, like, they could create a portfolio of their own.
That's what, you know what? I see your vision, you know?
Yeah.
I see your vision. I see it.
Because you then think, well, you're not going to, that 18 or 20,000 pounds actually then becomes 40,000 pounds if one of those students isn't there, but they're also doing something and getting the skills that they actually need. And where this actually came from was actually when I was actually on teacher training, and I actually was speaking to this barber, and he was like cutting my hair and all the rest. And he said, he was just like, yeah, I basically left school, but he did it in the wrong way. You know what I mean? He just stopped turning up and all the rest of it. And he went, but then I just started cutting hair and he loved it. And he was really successful. He's created his own business. He was growing it. And he was like, actually, I don't feel like, he knows he's not stupid. He felt like he got everything he needed to, but his behavioural issues meant, you know, he was probably not doing well for the school and not doing well for himself. And then all of a sudden I was like, well, yeah, actually I do. And I'm doing...
GCSEs are not for everyone,
they're not for everyone. I love it. I love Shakespeare, but am I going to like... And I have to say to students, sometimes I'm like, you don't have to love this guy. You just have to know. And then I'm getting onto a different thing when we're talking about assessments. And I'm like, well, this is just a memory test. This isn't an intelligence test. This is a memory test. And actually what you're doing is you're excluding certain people in society and making them feel as if they're stupid and they're not. And
that's where the behaviour issues come in.
And that's where it comes in.
Yeah, but you see how much teachers have on their plate, like when you're making sure that they're ready for it. Because if you have lower exam rates on your course, on your program, I mean, you have a lot of people to answer to. So then, it's just kind of like, do we really put that responsibility on the teachers
Staff,
or on the parents?
Behaviour, parents, teachers, respond. I hear everything, but again, I will go back and I will double down. If you want to improve the behaviour, you've got to invest in the behaviour. Behaviour is what I do, is what I believe in. I believe that if you've got a kid who is happy, in their well-being, they'll be engaged to learn. Now, how do you do that? Miss is absolutely right. To ask a person to stand in front of 30 children on their own and be able to not just manage the class, but affect their well-being so they can learn is unlikely, unrealistic. But how much are we paying our support staff? Where are we looking at recruiting people?
I want to challenge a bit, Sam, because I'm just going out on a limb. Why is it that if you're saying that it should be that it's too much on the teachers, why is it that, say, middle class schools or private schools, why do they have better behaviours? Do they have better parents who are adept?
Probably have
or is it that the teachers are doing more?
No, right. The teachers are. There's definitely, we know this is researched.
Yeah.
There are fewer learners per class to per teacher ratio.
So that's the key
Hence
point.
5.
Okay.
What area?
Enfield.
Okay, there you go. 5 to 1. But also, there's more money.
Mm-hmm.
There's more enrichment activities for these learners. There's more for them to get socially involved in. Whereas when you've got the working class areas, there is a high influx of learners because you've got working class families who do have more children, and therefore the demand on the local school is greater. The issue here unravels so many different things, but the key point is that schools, and let this sit, schools receive a lot of money per learner. The schools are not investing their money in the right direction. And that's where it boils down to. As a school, we have a responsibility, not just towards the class or the learners in that, we have a responsibility to the whole local area.
Okay.
That includes inviting parents, educating them, keeping them up to date as well. What are schools doing to help parents? Some may be new parents. Some may be parents that have quite a few children to deal with or behavioural issues that they're not familiar with. The school is educated in behaviour management. What are they doing to educate parents and say, have you tried this at home? Have you tried this? It's not the teacher that's responsible, it's the school. They are part of the local community.
Can I jump in real quick on that as well? Yeah. I think it's when I started doing teacher training, I remember, and I did a very particular route into teacher training. I think it probably would have been maybe cheaper than some other ones. And I remember them telling us, we're basically investing in you £30,000. That was how much it cost to do the particular training route that I did. Now, I don't know if that's more or less, but I was like, that's a significant investment, right? Now, I've been a teacher for nearly 10 years, so you've got that probably return on investment. But when we're talking about behaviour as well, it's all about relationships. The students that I taught at one school for a really long time, I saw my form class through from year 7 to 11. I had very few behavioural issues in my classroom in that year 11 because I knew them. I did feel like their dads, you know, like every child is your student, but those girls, it was a girls' school, I really knew them, you know. The behaviour should stop. Now look at the teacher retention crisis that's happening as well. Like if you are constantly getting teachers, you're investing £30,000 to train them, and then you're bringing them in, and then they're getting trained, and then they're getting burnt out, and then they're leaving the profession and not coming back at any point, then you're just constantly creating this cycle where it's just throw it up in the air and burn it. You might as well be doing that with the money, and it's not helping the kids as well. They will learn better with a teacher that they trust, that they have respect for, and this is a social thing that takes time.
Okay, I'm gonna leave it there. Listen, I had actually in my head, I had so many other questions. But again, these questions we're gonna come back again, and I'm sure obviously teacher surgery. If you stay with us, we're gonna expand on these questions and revisit a lot of these questions. But we're back to part 2. And talking about questions, we get a lot of questions from all of you. And so we get a chance to answer some of the questions that you DM us so that we can answer and expand for you. So we're going to go to the wheel and see who's going to get the question.
Like
yeah? All
dark
right.
black.
There you go. It's black again.
It's like a dark colour black.
It's black. Listen, man.
It's black.
All right, so yeah, the question, and I'm gonna tell you who it is after. Yeah, so I'm gonna read the question first.
Oh gosh.
I want to build tension.
There we go.
I want to, see.
There we go.
All right, so it is. Okay, so this is a light-hearted one. All right,
Good.
it's a light-hearted one. Or is it? All right, so it's actually for Sabs. Yeah?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
You told me first. I thought the question was coming first.
Yeah. It's all right. So, what is your most embarrassing teaching moment?
Oh my God, are we going there?
Yeah, we're really going there.
Okay.
I want to hear from both, actually.
Right.
I want to hear from you as a teacher and a student.
Wow.
Me as a teacher and?
As a student. An embarrassing teacher moment when you were a student.
Oh gosh, that really takes me back decades. Oh right, I'll do me as a student first. Right. I was a good kid, but when you've got your RE teacher who's taken off her blazer and she's got serious sweat patches everywhere from the heat and humidity, and the whole class has just tarnished her. Yeah, I was one of those kids that found that really hilarious. I felt really sad for that teacher who, in the heat and having done so many hours of teaching, would have, so that was one of the student moments when I was a student.
Okay, you ruined the teacher's life that day.
Yeah, I think I really felt for that teacher because she was really embarrassing. It was a naughty crowd. But yeah, me as a teacher, look, teachers don't always know everything. And I think the more I've stayed in the profession, the more I've become okay with that.
Yeah.
So you go into a class, well, I went into a group and I had a good group, but one student was so clever. And she was so bright and so intelligent. So we had the curriculum and she knew what's coming next week. She would always over-rehearse. Now I'm inundated with work that I need to do. So there are times where I've gone into a class and I might have just prepared the morning of that day. I know what I want to cover, but in terms of the resources. So I've gone in, but I've not prepared for a certain part of the lesson thinking, oh, you know what, it's okay. I'll just try and wing it. I kind of remember what I did last year.
Yeah.
I was not ready for it because she questioned me hardcore to the ground. And at that point, I become, I become that RE teacher that started sweating. And I kind of made myself look like an idiot because she asked me a question. I don't remember what the question was, but it was around law because that's my subject area. And I answered the question, but I got it wrong. And I knew in my head I was wrong in that moment.
Wow.
And I'm going to be honest here. Yeah. I knew in my head in that moment what I'm saying, what's coming out of my mouth is wrong. And I knew what she was saying was right. Yeah. My ego got the better of me. In that moment, my ego got the better of me.
I love your honesty, though.
I was like, no, I am right. Yeah. And it was not a good call because I now walked away thinking, I've just done all of that in front of the whole class. Yeah. I now need to go back and fix it.
And undo it. Yeah.
Because, but don't worry, because I knew she was going to go back and try and, prove that I'm wrong. So I got on the phone that day, and just on our way home, gave her a call and said, you were right. Yeah. My mistake. Yeah. Really sorry.
But that's really good thing to do to make that phone call.
I made a phone call to her, but I had to also speak to her in front of the whole group because I was worried about, the gossip and what, the tarnishing of a teacher is really crucial.
You know what they say? If you embarrass me in public, apologize in public.
Apologize in public, exactly. But I will say, when I look back, it was one of the most stupidest things I've ever done. And I remember at that point thinking to myself, it's okay, because she was a very confident, borderline. What's that word? We're a bit, big-headed.
No,
not quite. She was very big. She was very sure of herself. So sometimes that can come across a bit, I don't know, cocky, arrogant. Yeah, can come across a bit arrogant.
Conceited.
Yeah, so I think it was that I overstepped the mark there. But looking back on it, I promised myself I'd never do that again. And it's absolutely okay if you don't know. And if a student who is a little bit, confident is coming forward and saying, actually, you've got it wrong, miss, it's this. It doesn't make you look like a bad teacher. I think you just have to be really open and honest about it.
I like that.
So I had to go back and retract. So it was definitely not a very good teaching moment for me.
There you go. Who wants to go next?
Yeah, I'll jump in. Yeah, you've definitely made me reflect on certain moments there. I think we've all done that little
makes
thing
me
where
feel
it's like,
better.
actually, no. Well, let's just check on Google. I'm just showing you how to check things.
You're really spinning it. You're making it look like
that teachers use. The teachers say, no, I'm not going to give you the answer. I want you to go home and figure it out yourself.
Okay.
That's
I'm learning.
You learn these little tricks after a while, don't you? I'll start off with most embarrassing, actually, and I think, so it was a previous school.
Is this as a student or teacher?
Sorry, this was for me as a teacher the most embarrassing.
All right.
So it was I was new at this school. I got invited to this kind of leadership type meeting. It's the first time I've been there. And they said, we're going to have a couple of year 11s kind of come in and we're going to kind of like, speak to them about their progress and things. I was like, yeah, that sounds fine. So they brought this student in and he's actually a student in my form and wasn't particularly well behaved. I think he would admit that. I think everyone would have done at that point. Also didn't attend school particularly regularly. And so they said, what's going on with your attendance? So I just jumped and like, what's going on with your grades and your attendance? So I kind of said, well, look, he's fantastic in like English, like he's trying really hard. He just needs to get his attendance up. And then some of the other teachers then were asking him, but he you could see him just getting more and more defensive. And he kind of like, credit to him, he kind of like stood his ground and kind of said, well, this is the stuff that's going on. And I'm glad like the school kind of reflected afterwards when this didn't work, we're not going to do that again and all the rest of it. But I actually felt very uncomfortable in that situation. I realized it was kind of like an interview that clearly he wasn't prepped for. I was like, I think I would struggle in that situation. And it just didn't sit right with me at all. And I thought, and then he didn't come into school for like another week. So I was like, that clearly didn't work. Do you know what I mean? Because we didn't see him. And I thought, now I'm thinking from what you said, I probably should have done this more publicly almost in a way. But I did like take him to one side in one of the lessons when he did come in. And I said to him, I was like, look, I'm really sorry about that. I didn't know what that kind of thing I was walking into was going to be. And I said, and he was 15, 16. And I said, look, I'm saying man to man here. I genuinely am sorry because I know I made you feel uncomfortable, and that's not what I got
I'm
into
sure
education
I
for.
could.
That's
Yeah.
good.
I wish most. I could. I wish some of my teachers done.
Would apologise.
One-to-one
It's harder.
apologies. Yeah.
It is because it's a client. You've got to. I know, like. I think it is hard. I think it is hard for teachers, because there is an ego thing. You want to keep control. So I think, but the longer I've got it, I think the more respectful you are to students, the more respectful they are to you.
I agree.
Hack's gone.
I'll be quick.
I'm just gonna get you to do one just for the time.
I'm gonna say, 'cause I've never been embarrassed as a kid anyway at school now.
Yo, you never been embarrassed, yeah?
As a
Okay.
kid, my best life. I loved my whole
Wow.
time at school. Not one piece. I was racking my brains, but I literally can't think of
Wow.
one on the real. As a teacher, easy. I love Black History Month. Always coming as a character. I've done Hakeem, Shaka Zulu,
Yeah.
John LaRose, Martin Luther King.
Wow.
But anyway, we were doing this one in particular. There was his name's Ronnie. Anyway, Mr. Universe. Yeah. Then Ronnie something.
Oh, yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
Mr. Universe. Black man.
Yeah.
That's it, man. You
Yeah.
know, I'm a bit older now, but
Yeah.
look, so boys, I'm gonna show you Mr. Universe. Put 100 keys on the bar. Then we go out. So I'm gonna show you. He does twice this, but I'm gonna show you 10 because I'm Mr. Asharobi. Is that how we go?
Don't tell me you couldn't even lift up that 10.
Around everyone after school, sir. Got the bench prints out. Come on, then. First one, and I realised, Jesus Christ. Oh my God. I'm not gonna make 10. I swear. But you can't stop now. So,
man.
the third one, I'm shaking.
Hey.
I won't lie. By 4, Mr. Alpha Mr. Character come and help me. For the rest of that week, the year 11, the year 10,
you would have been finished.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. Sir, it was embarrassing as hell. But you know what? In another way, it also just led to it humanized me. It made me see that I can take a failing and still be okay about it. But it was mortifying.
Do you know what? I'm gonna wrap up there, but I know it's not a competition, but I think he won. I think that's the way it's on. That's the way it's on.
Thank God.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, that wraps up another episode. Thank you, everyone. Thank you again for coming back. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and share with your friends. Keep on asking us questions. Take care from me, and take care from everyone else. All right.